Welcome to The Writer Reads Dinner and a Show, a science fiction short story. This is part 1 of 6. Mack met me the second I stepped into the teleport center, sliding in front of me and laying a hand on my shoulder. I looked down at the hand, then up at him. "We're all supposed to be on leave," I reminded him, frowning. "And?" he asked in a since when kind of way. I made to step around him. "And I'm on leave." Of course his hand didn't move, and of course my step didn't take me anywhere. I sighed, put my foot back on the ground and looked up at him. "Mac." His mouth tightened in a single grim line. "I need to know you're coming back." Now why would I do a dumbass thing like that? I thought, and watched him clench his jaw, because of course he was in my head. I could sense his presence, and when I looked, there he was, large as life, leaning against the inside of my implant. "You know that's not the wisest thing to say to me, right?" he wanted to know. I stuck my hand on my hip and cocked my head. "So, do you need me?" I said. "Need you?" he asked, puzzled by the change of tack. "Yeah, as in, do you have a job you need me on?" I clarified, fixing him with a look. He frowned, as though sensing a trap, but he couldn't work out where I'd hidden it. I waited, forcing him to answer by not saying a single word. Finally, he caved. "Well, no," he managed slowly. "Good." I gave him my brightest grin, stepped back and slid sideways out from under his hand. An extra shimmy saw me avoid his grab and make it to the teleport mat, which was where my next mistake became all too clear. The teleportation officer wouldn't send me. He looked at Mac, looked at me, and started smirking. "Captain says he doesn't need me," I snapped, finishing the sentence, "and that means I can go." Mac cleared his throat. "Not entirely, Cutter." I sighed and sat down on the teleport mat, only to be quietly picked up by the other crew members waiting to be sent planetside. "Sorry, Joss. I didn't make it hard for them, but I didn't leave on my own either. Childish, I know." Mac just folded his arms and looked at me. I folded my arms and looked back. "So, boss," I said, and he sighed, coming to crouch in front of me. I did flinch when he laid a hand on my knee. "That refusal to give us another contract until we'd had some R&R includes you, you know." I glared at him. "Doesn't look like it." "I booked us a table at Trennenbach's." As something calculated to stop me in my tracks. Trennenbach's was... I stared at him. "The restaurant." He nodded, his eyes wary. I was glad I was already sitting, or I would have fallen. I gaped at him instead. "For real?" Over at the teleport console, Tens started to snicker. "But why?" I asked, and Tens chuckled. "I told you she wouldn't get it," our main comms man and teleport operator said. Max scowled, although why he directed it at me instead of the man pulling his chain, I didn't know. Max sighed. "Call it a bonus," he told me. "You did good." I almost relaxed, but I saw the glance they exchanged and folded my arms across my chest. "What?" I demanded. "What is it that you're not saying?" Again, that glance. I followed it, arched an eyebrow, unfolded my arms, and pushed to my feet. When Mac moved to keep between me and the teleport mat, I stepped back and away and turned for the door. "Keep your secrets," I told him. "Someone told me I needed more time on the range." Ten snickered, but I kept walking. I even got to the door before I heard Mac sigh. I did not expect what he said next, even if the tiredness in his tone was right on. "Tens, you know what to do." "He what?" I pivoted to face them, getting ready to give Mac a piece of my mind. Silver light enveloped me before I said a single word, but I was still shouting as it faded. "Mac, you piece of sh—" I let the words peter out when I realized where I was. The man hadn't just booked us a table at Trennenbach's. He'd booked us a private table. Well, as private as any table can be, with Rowan, Case, and Stepien sitting around it, and Cascade sitting alongside. Mack materialized in front of me and quirked an eyebrow. "Yes?" he asked, smirking slightly. I jumped as Tens tapped me on the shoulder. "After party," he told me. "There are a few of us Mac wouldn't let go down alone. Something about the Arak having us sent and a half a dozen contracts being put out on our lives." I looked back at Mac, but Stepien interrupted in soft, almost dismissive tones. "And someone mentioned there was this world with nice restaurants, and while we couldn't stop at it, we found a place at our destination that was similar to the one you liked most on the one we had to pass up." He glanced around, and I knew he'd noted the toughened plasteel on the walls and the apparent absence of cameras, spyware, and recording devices. Maybe not with his eyes, but certainly with the technology in his implant. "Teleport damper is up," he noted, and I relaxed. There were more ways you could be snatched than a straight-up grab. And now we knew the Arak had access to teleport systems, if only from the ships they'd captured. We needed to be extra careful. "The Arak aren't our only problem," Mac told me, stepping close and guiding me to an empty seat. It put my back to a nice solid wall and gave me an unobstructed view of the city beyond the plasteel. I liked the night lights, but it surprised me Mac knew that and cared enough to make it happen. There was something therapeutic about watching the blink of neon and the shift of shuttle lights along the skyways running between the risers. Most of them glinted with solar paint, and the air was surprisingly clear. "Where is this?" I asked, because there weren't a lot of worlds that cared enough for their atmospheres to be bothered with solar hovers. "Resort World," Mac answered shortly. "Celesti. Odyssey chose it. You heard of it?" I gulped. Of course I'd heard of it. It was in one of the systems near my homeworld, somewhere every kid in my class used to fantasize about going. Mostly to work. We all knew we'd never be on the kind of wage that would let us actually be guests there, but it was a gem of a place to work at, or so the rumors said. I frowned slightly, leaning back in my chair. Well, sucks to be them then, I thought, but couldn't help feeling sorry for those I'd left trapped behind me. Rowan bristled, ready to take offense, but Mac just leaned across and laid a heavy hand on my thigh. A heavy, warm hand. "Those days are well behind you, girl. And as for your classmates, how many of them raised a hand when they knew the trouble you were in?" It was a good question, and one I didn't care to answer. Fortunately, Case came to the rescue. She slapped a hand on the table. "Well, now the doom and gloom part of the day is over," she announced. "Let's eat." She looked around the table. "This is a restaurant, right?" As if her words were a summons, the double doors on one side of the room opened, and a small team of dark blue-jacketed serving staff arrived. The trio who'd arrived with them, however, wore the white of chefs, 2 women and 1 man. The woman holding the center of the formation stepped forward. "We are your chefs for the night." She made a short gesture with her hand, and the serving staff stepped forward, delivering menus to the table. Case and Stepien stopped them before they could get past the foot, and handed the menus back. I saw the chef's eyes narrow. "Your food will be delivered individually," she informed us, and I wondered why she cared. That thought was cut short by a flare of light across the windows. I ended up on the floor behind the table along with the rest. Even Cascade whipped in behind cover. "I thought you said the booking was private," Mac protested, glaring at the chef. She looked mortified. "It was, should have been," she replied. "Omri." Her words trailed off when she saw the stub-nosed blaster in the hand of the woman beside her. "Sorry, Kate, but the bounty's just too good." "Bounty?" Kate didn't seem to be able to connect the link between a bounty and being a chef in one of the most prestigious restaurants in several systems. "But—" Omri gave her a pitying look, and the male chef grabbed the back of Kate's collar and shoved her toward the table. All the while the blaze of light against the glass didn't falter. "You know, at this height, if they blow the windows, you're all screwed," Max said, almost conversationally. In my head, I heard him asking another question. "Tens, you got those blockers down yet?" "We've got to get through the countermeasures first." I pulled the glazer from the holdout in the small of my back, ignoring my captain's raised eyebrows. What? The man thought I'd go anywhere without a weapon.